Hello and welcome to your Astro Tarot forecast for the week of June 2nd through the 8th. I am Michelle Shea Walker, and this is your glass half full perspective on the week ahead. Welcome to the new paid supporters and subscribers that have joined since last week. There was a little influx of new supporters, which means that we're going to have a raring competition for this week's draw of the personal reading at the end of this. But just know I want to say thank you if you become a paid subscriber this week or if you tipped your reader. Both things that enter you into the drawing, they also support me, support what I'm doing here, allow me to have the freedom in my life to be able to create new content for you. And that is ultimately what I want to be doing. So thank you for your support. And also, you're entered into the reading. So we'll see at the end who has won this week's personal reading. But until then, we're going to go through our week day by day drawing and astrology. I don't know why that was such a difficult sentence to get out. We're going to go through our day-by-day forecast for the week ahead, and I'm very intrigued by the energy of June. So before we get into the actual day-to-day cards, I want to say that I got this rush of excitement when I was shuffling for this week's reading and kind of just looking ahead at the calendar for June. And part of this because if you are a Cancer, you have Cancer in one of your prominent big three placements. It is a big month. Jupiter's moving into Cancer, which is relatively lucky. And then there's a Jupiter Cazimi on the 24th of the month. So those of you with Cancer somewhere heavy in your chart, that area of your life might get a really good burst of luck. So that's, for me as a Cancer sun, I think that's part of the rush of the energy. But it also just feels really like there's a lot of potential in the month ahead. And I think a lot of it has to do with how you utilize it and the work that you've done to prepare yourself up until this point. But it does feel kind of like something I said, I think, in last week's reading, that luck is preparation meeting opportunity. It feels like the month of June is where that could potentially happen for a lot of us. So I don't want you to stress about the stuff that you feel like you haven't been prepared for, because some of that could just be imposter syndrome messing with your head. But do wrap up loose ends. If you feel like there's something that you've been working on and it's almost done, like tie those into a pretty little bow as we move into June. And I feel like you might have the opportunity to present that to someone that's important that could help you make some changes, whether it be in your career, in your love life, what have you. You're going to be presented with opportunities this month, and you want to make sure that you have the full scope of your authentic self prepared to present to the world. So that is the overall energy in June that I'm feeling. We're starting this week on June 2nd with relatively quiet astrology. Our card is the Queen of Swords. And the Queen of Swords is about truth and boundaries. But in particular, I'm getting a lot of energy just now coming through in the throat chakra. So I think on Monday, we're really being called to speak with clarity and authenticity and not care so much about what the outside world thinks. It is the right side of my throat chakra that's flaring up, which is usually less creative and emotional expression and more expressing your opinions and asserting yourself and standing up for yourself with your voice. So I think that Monday is coming in with this very interesting Queen of Swords energy where we are in control of how we communicate and who we communicate with and who we let into our inner circle. Because I always see the Queen of Swords as sort of the drawbridge to the castle, and that whenever you have the option to socialize with people in your world, you are in full control of that drawbridge. So if someone's energy is not in alignment with you, pull up the drawbridge. Don't let them have access to you. If you feel like someone is worthy and their energy is aligned, you can drop the drawbridge down. But the point is that you're the one pulling the reins of that drawbridge and you get to control it. So trust your instincts and be unapologetic, because the Queen of Swords is just like brutal honesty, brutal, like cutthroat with who the guest list is, and just unapologetic because she is in tune with her inner truth. And she trusts that inner truth, and she's not afraid to express it, and she's not afraid to live her life in accordance to it. So this is very much a like, make sure that you're walking your talk energy for Monday. Ooh, I love that. That's coming through with a couple other things in addition to the social circle aspect of things. Make sure you're walking your talk, and that, like, if you want to be in a super successful business situation, like, what does that version of you act like and talk like? Like, start now. If you want to be in a super successful relationship, how does that person treat their lover, and how are you treating the rest of the world around you? And is it in accordance to how you want to show up in your romantic relationships? Because you can start to practice that unconditional love now with everyone else in your life. Ooh, that was good. It got some, like, energy moving and clearing from the throat chakra. So I think that was what someone needed to hear. I'm going to take a sip of tea, and we're going to move into Tuesday. So Tuesday, also relatively quiet astrology. And our card, which I think is where the goosebumps of June kind of start to come into play, is the Hanged One reversed. So there's different ways to read reverse cards. What's coming through for me here is that we are getting unstuck from a situation. We're coming through what's normally the Hanged One telling us to kind of just hang out, chill for a bit. Things are getting into order and you don't need to take any action, to telling us that it's now getting to be time to take action. So if you feel like you've been kind of chomping in the bit, or like in the pin, like ready to run the race for the past couple months, probably since the beginning of the year, this is your sign that the gates are now open. You can now run the race. You can be off at the races, whatever metaphor you want to use. And that's coming through on Tuesday. Again, going back to Monday's thing of making sure that you're walking your talk and tying up loose ends for the month of June in general, this is an energy of, it's probably not going to be something that you haven't already been working on or thinking about or planning out, that you're at the races for on Tuesday. So don't try to reinvent the wheel. Like, don't get to Tuesday and be like, I'm going to totally scrap everything that I've ever worked on, or especially all the things I've been working on since the start of the year, and I'm going to start fresh. Like, don't do that. Like, what have you been waiting for? Because I feel like there is going to be an element on Tuesday of letting that imposter syndrome get the best of us, and finally being presented with the opportunity to go the green light, and being like, wait, I don't know. I don't know if I want this thing that I've been saying for months and months and months that I want. So get over yourself, get over your limiting beliefs on Tuesday, and just go. Like, almost like I'm getting the imagery of like a horse at the races, a really great metaphor, because it's like that horse isn't second guessing it. Like, it just knows its purpose is like, when the gates are open, it's going to go running. And that is what happens. So don't overthink this opportunity to start action and momentum forward on Tuesday. Just go. Just go and see where it leads you. It may not lead you where you think it was going to. It might end up leading you to that thing that you suddenly have the impulse to scrap everything and start over towards, but you have to go towards the thing that's ready right now. So whatever it is that you've been praying for, go that. Use the thing with the longest legs and stand on that, and it'll lead you towards your next goal. So moving into Wednesday, we have a little bit of astrology. The moon is changing signs. I did start keeping track of that this month. So we're going into a Libra moon, so very balanced. I'm not going to talk about the moon every time it changes signs, but just telling you that is something I'm keeping watch of now. So if it does feel important to the astrology, I will mention it. And then we also have Venus sextile Jupiter. So Venus sextile Jupiter, we have the planet of love and beauty and romance and creativity with the planet of luck coming together with a little kiss. A little kiss of luck is usually how I say the sextiles. So like Jupiter, the planet of luck, is coming in to give an extra big smooch of luck to this little sextile energy. It could mean that it's a good day for your love life. It could be it's a good day for your art, your creativity. But it is a softer energy. So like, don't expect anything that's like life-changing, earth-shattering. It's gonna come in a little more subtle. Like, it's not getting swept off your feet by a knight in shining armor. It's having a like really cute exchange with someone across the coffee shop. Like, manage your expectations on Wednesday is what I'm saying. But know that it could be a little bit of an inspiring connection, whether it be romantically or creatively. And it could be with another human being or with your own energy based on where you are in your life and what your current goals are. That said, Our card is the Ten of Wands. So the Ten of Wands usually comes in when we're carrying more than our own share or trying to just like manage too many things at once and complete too many tasks at once. So maybe this creative inspiration or this little romance comes through as a pleasant little distraction from the burdens that you're carrying. I want to warn you against thinking that if it is a romantic situation that kind of suddenly comes in on Wednesday, this does feel like it could have the tendency, as I just very fittingly, because nothing that comes out of my mouth during these readings is an accident, very fittingly used the metaphor of a knight in shining armor for that comparison just a few moments ago. It feels like for someone listening to this, there could be a tendency for a romantic opportunity to come through on Wednesday or to seem more fruitful on Wednesday and to get caught up in that sort of like fairy tale rescue scenario fantasy that is not healthy. That is codependent, like patriarchal programming, Disney decoding. So be mindful of that. Be mindful that there is no one other person that's going to swoop in and change your life and make everything better and take care of all your problems for you. Like you are the only one that can be that knight in shining armor for yourself. But when you are providing that role for yourself, you open up the opportunity for other people that are supportive, that have a similar, I don't want to say rescuing energy, supporting energy to come in. But the great thing about that is then you're not going to put all the pressure on that person to constantly rescue you because you've learned the lesson that you rescue yourself. And from there, you're then able to hold your own when you need to. And then if someone wants to take one of these sticks for you, you can very graciously be like, oh, yes, please. Thank you. Thank you for the support. So accept help, but don't expect rescue is the message that I'm getting for Wednesday, regardless of the situation, whether it be romantic or otherwise. Accept help when needed, but don't expect someone to rescue you and take your entire load off of you forever, because that's your job. And the reason we're here on this planet, and it would make life boring if you didn't get to have those opportunities to tackle those tasks. Whew, almost lost my voice again. Throat chakra is doing some stuff this week. Okay, so as we move into Thursday, Venus goes into Taurus, which is, I'm a Venus in Leo. I like big, showy, ungrounded displays of love and romance. So this is not normally my wheelhouse, but I got really excited when I saw that Venus is moving into Taurus, especially in regards to the fact that the card that came through for the day is the Ten of Pentacles. So this is a very welcome, grounded love that is built on a solid foundation with strong pillars holding up the roof. Like this is, and again, this is the energy of the moment. It's not necessarily talking specifically about a romance. It's that while Venus is in Taurus, we have the opportunity to create more stability around our love, creativity, abundance, and support systems. So, excuse me. If you are new, burps are usually a sign that there's big energy shifting. So while I'm sorry, I also know that it usually is happening because of the energy and not because I'm drinking tea. I didn't drink a bunch of soda for that. So that's for anyone that thinks that that's just an excuse. It literally is something I found in my energy using practice, that like energy is moving, excess energy is moving out, and we're rebalancing. Okay, where was I? What was the thought that I was talking about before that? Venus into Taurus. Okay, so we're moving out of Gemini, which is a very chatty energy, but not always the most reliable energy. Like there is a little, it's an air sign. Like there's a little flittingness of Gemini. If you're friends with a lot of air signs, they might be the people that are least likely to text you back for like a week on end. And there's definitely this energy of moving from that sort of state of like, being chatty and communicative, but not necessarily as reliable, to being more grounded. Now, Taurus energy is interesting because yes, it's grounded. Yes, it can be very affectionate. It loves a good cozy home. It loves a good Ten of Pentacles moment, which is why it's so fitting that this card is coming out on this day. But Venus does not take any bullshit. Venus will not hang out with people that they don't like. Venus will not be the one that's tolerating something in a relationship that they like. They're gonna speak up. And like, honestly, most of the time with not Venus, Taurus. Have I been saying Venus this whole time? Taurus energy, which Taurus is ruled by Venus, is about like a stubborn selfishness in the most beautiful way. And again, I always say this from a place of love. My sister's a Taurus, my bestie's a Taurus. I have a lot of Taurus energy surrounding me, and I find it so amusing when I see the energy show up in like a really authentic way. Mostly because I don't have that. I am a very fluid energy, and I think that's why the universe throws a bunch of Taurus in my path, because I don't have that my way or the highway mentality that a lot of Taurus and even earth signs in general sometimes can have. And there is a time and a place for that. So I think perhaps for some listening, there was a bit of a very chatty, communicative, flirty Venus Gemini energy that came in the previous month. And there was a little element of like needing to kind of speak up for yourself and say, hey, I've really enjoyed our time together. I love our conversations. I cannot take the lack of communication for like a week at a time. Like you have to put down like a requirement, not an ultimatum, but like just state your personal needs to someone and say, I'm going to need a little more groundedness, a little more reliability from this situation. And if that's not something you could provide, please let me know so that I can move on, because earth signs are very sensible. So that can be applied again outside of relationships. Venus is very much about your finances and also your creativity. But I think in terms of finances, because we have the 10 of Pentacles coming in, which are the coins, there's an element here of, again, being like, this isn't working for me. And X, Y, and Z are my parameters. And like, it's fine if you can't meet those parameters, but if you can't, I'm out. So there's an element of maybe potentially putting down some boundaries with your job, maybe asking for a raise. Like there's a sense of like owning your worth a bit more and going in and saying, hey, this is what I deserve, being very grounded with that pitch and saying X, Y, and Z is why I deserve this. And if they're not willing to give that to you, it might be time to walk away and say like, cool, it's my way or the highway though, because Venus is in Taurus right now. So that is a very empowering energy. Trying to think if there's anything that I need to kind of asterisk or warn against this. I mean, Taurus energy can be a little too blunt. So, especially with communicating with your most heart-based relationships, your nearest and dearest, don't be afraid to occasionally ask yourself if you need to soften your delivery. But again, it's not about softening it to the point that you're not stating your truth or not asking for what you want, because we started the week with the Queen of Swords, and the Queen of Swords is okay with putting down boundaries and saying what she means. Taurus is also okay with saying what they mean and asking for what they desire, because they think that their way is the best way. And most of the time they're right. So there's this energy of asking for what you're worth, asking for what you deserve, being very clear with that communication, and being able to feel stable and grounded enough to walk away from situations that aren't willing to give that to you. Okay, so that was Thursday. Friday, we have Mercury sextile Chiron, which is an interesting energy. And then the moon moves into Scorpio. Just because that caught my eye, I'll go ahead and state it. So Mercury sextile Chiron is communication. Planet is Mercury communication. Little kiss of luck to Chiron, which is your wounded healer. So it could be a good conversation or good day for conversations around your healing or a healing conversation. And this could be as extensive as therapy, or it could be as simple as having an everyday, pretty normal emotional level conversation where someone just says something really beautiful that like fits in your heart in a way that like helps mend it or helps make something make sense. So again, don't feel like it has to be go big or go home. You can do like a big therapy style session or something like that in this communication, but just stay open for the little mini like band-aids. I'm getting like almost like conversational band-aids for your heart that might come through, where someone says something that's just beautiful and fits right into what you needed in that moment, and you let it kind of heal a part of you. So that's really beautiful energy, and it goes along with our Hermit reverse card. So we are having this element of coming out of hiding or our cocoon or sort of our retreat to lick our wounds. Again, like the Hanged One reverse, we're coming from a place where if it was upright, it's about patience. Hermit upright is about like going within. When it's reversed, I'm going to say that in this case, it's coming back out into the world. So there is a tendency with this card showing up that tells me that you might be a little hesitant to come out into the world. But it's time. It's time. And keep in mind that you could have a really healing conversation today if you go out into the world. So Friday, if you have the opportunity to socialize or have a good conversation with someone, it's a good day for that. And then with the moon in Scorpio, which I don't know if it's happening earlier in the day or later in the day, but it's an energy of kind of being able to like pick up the rock and examine what's underneath it, like be okay with the creepy crawliness of things. So that also could be like a little self-acceptance coming into play. So let yourself get back out there if that's the case on Friday. Saturday, the astrology is relatively quiet. Relatively quiet. Did I tell you the throat chakra is doing things this week? Stuttering is also a sign of that. But the card is another major arcana card, reversed, the Temperance. So this is our third reversed major arcana card in this reading. So of the 6 cards that we've played, 3 of them are minor arcana, 3 of them have been reversed major arcana. So this tells me that this is almost like fate's week to course correct, or to kind of like, it's not course correct because it's not like fate's going in the wrong direction. It's like just like a wheel got off track a little bit. Like we had a wheel dragging off the track, and it was like slowing things down a little bit, but like we're jumping it back on the track now and things can move a little bit smoothly. So we were headed to the same destination. It was just a little more difficult before. And as these cards are coming through reverse, we're kind of cleaning up the last little bit of energy that needed to be cleaned up for that wheel to jump back on the track. So with Saturday being Temperance reversed, again, our other major arcanas were Hangman reverse, a time of patience and waiting is over. Hermit reversed, a time of going within is over. It's time to get back out in the world. Temperance reversed is a different kind of quality of energy that I'm reading into. So Temperance upright is it's a pretty positive card. I mean, it's about feeling like you're doing the impossible, like you're juggling all the things, you're having it all, you're creating water into wine, coal into gold, like you're creating alchemy in this card. And to the outside world, it can kind of be like, ooh, how do they do it? Like they're just doing, I don't know how it all gets done. It's magic. But the message behind that is there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes for that effortless magic to be happening. So think of someone in your life or in, pop culture where you're just like, oh, they just are constantly doing good things and creating good things and they have a good family and blah, blah, blah. And I don't know how they do it all. Like it's just, they're perfect. They got the perfect life. And they're, first of all, we know that that's never true. Nothing's ever perfect. And you hear that down the line when people reveal things that are going on behind the scenes. So don't get caught up in the imagery. But do remember that even when things are really going good for someone, there's a lot of juggling happening in the background. And now juggling doesn't have to feel like hard work. So I think that's where we make this mistake. We either think that it's completely effortless and there's no juggling, no work involved, and that person just lucked into all the things that they've got. Or we think that it's so hard work that like inevitably they're gonna have to drop a ball and it's really stressful, and it's sort of that like single burden mother energy of like being a working mom and doing the thing. Like there's this feeling of like stress that goes with the other side of the spectrum. We're trying to bring it to the middle where we don't think things are effortless, because when you really think about it, if things really were effortless all the time, it'd be really boring. Like we need that stimulus of trying to fix a problem and figure out what to do next. So we're going to give ourselves stimulation, just enough of those balls that we're juggling that we're not staring at the wall bored, but not so many balls that we're scared to death that we're going to drop one. For those of you that do feel like you're juggling a lot of balls and you're scared to death you're going to drop one, I'm going to echo back to, I think, something I said in last week's reading, but it's a beautiful new metaphor that I've just learned, that sometimes the balls are made of glass and sometimes they're made of rubber, plastic, whatever non-breakable material you want to make them. So when you're juggling and you feel like you've got too much on your plate, there are occasionally rubber balls that you can throw off to the side and know that they're not going to be harmed, that you can pick back up later, whereas you have to give your attention to the glass balls. So that's a side note for someone, because I feel like for someone, they really are doing that sort of like, like single working mom trudge or like whatever, like they've got a lot on their plate right now. And I don't want to devalue the effort that they're going to have to put into the energy right now, but we are still moving it back towards a place of less efforting and more ease and more stimulation without overwhelm. And so for some of you, if you're too far the direction, I think this is a mirror image, so it's probably this way. Anyway, if you're too far one direction where you are going to the extreme of having too many balls that you're juggling, the reassurance there is some of the balls are rubber and you can drop them and you'll pick them back up later, and that's okay. And you have to just accept that fact. If you're too far over the other direction where you're just like, I just want everything to be effortless, I never want to have to work at anything again. Like, first of all, think of how that boring that would be. Notice how much stagnation that creates in your life. And then think about picking up a couple balls and making that stimulation happen. And for some of us, we're in the middle already where we're not juggling too many balls, but maybe we're tricking ourselves into thinking we're juggling too many balls. And that's a shift towards gratitude. So again, we're taking this perspective of the Temperance card, and with it reversed, we're looking behind the scenes a little bit, and we're recognizing that it does take a little bit of effort, but it's about managing your gratitude, your perspective, your priorities to make it be an effortless effort that's stimulating and creates less stagnation in your life, but doesn't make you completely stressed out. Whew, that was a lot. Okay, moving into Sunday, we have Mercury conjunct Jupiter. And then after that, Mercury's moving into Cancer. So we start out with Mercury in Gemini. It meets up with Jupiter in the sky. They're in alignment. That's what a conjunct is. And they're basically intensifying each other's energy. So Mercury, planet of communication technology, Jupiter, planet of luck and expansion, are coming together, and they're both like, they're intensifying one another. So you might find that if you communicate clearly on Sunday, your luck is enhanced. And you might find that you expand through communication or through technology on Sunday. Stay open to that, keeping in mind that some technology is destroying our planet and making us less critical thinking. And if you can opt for the technology that still supports your growth and critical thinking and doesn't suck up the world's water supply, that's a beautiful way to use technology to your advantage without completely turning your own creative power and light off. So, little subtle, not so subtle soapbox. With that in mind, we have our first upright major arcana for the week on Sunday, but it's the Tower card. Oh my God. I love the Tower card, guys. I love it and I love to hate it, but it is about a necessary destruction and rebuilding. So the Tower card comes through when we are stuck in a pattern that's not serving us. And if we're really self-aware, we know we're stuck in a pattern that's not serving us, and the Tower card is just a gentle push to use that knowledge to our advantage, get out of the pattern, tear down the building, start fresh, developing new patterns and new habits that are healthier and more aligned with where we want to build towards. If the Tower card comes up in any reading and you are either not self-aware enough to realize that you're doing unhealthy habits, or you're self-aware, but you just don't want to do the work to go away from the healthy habit or from the unhealthy habits and towards healthier habits, this card will come in and tear the building down for you. So it can be an empowering process when the Tower card comes up, or it can be a disheartening, disappointing, destructive process. And it's all up to you. and how you use your self-awareness to your advantage and get out of the fear of changing things up and transforming, because that's ultimately what happens when we're in a place of being self-aware but not moving out of the old habits. It's because we have some sort of fear of that change, of that transformation, of what's to come, of the unknown. And if you can jump over that fear of the unknown into healthier habits towards the future that you actually want to be building, and tear down the building that you thought you wanted, that you no longer do want, that no longer aligns with your values, then this is a more effortless process. It's still hard work because you're taking something you thought you'd like built 10 stories high, 12 stories high, 80 stories high, and you're looking at all the work that you've done over the past several months or years, and you're like, this isn't working. I have to go down to the foundation. I can't use any of this because there are cracks in the foundation and there are cracks in the walls. And that building's going to come down eventually if I keep building higher and higher and higher on it. So I might as well tear it down now, save myself the long run effort by destroying what effort I've already put into it, and then put effort into building a building on a healthier habit, pattern, foundation, mindset, what have you. This could be building your own building up, your physical building, creating physical healthy habits for yourself on a day-to-day basis. This could be building healthy patterns around your work, both with creating the boundaries you need to have a work-life balance and also creating the structure that you need to actually get things done. It could be tearing down to the foundation for relationships, which most of the time does mean leaving a relationship you're in. Sometimes it can mean if both parties are ready for that tower moment and you both want to tear it down to the foundation and start fresh, you can have very rare circumstances where the energy is right enough and both people are at the right place where you can rebuild another building together. But it takes a lot of work because you got to reestablish habits that you've created with that person. So a lot of times what's easiest is be like, I've established habits with this person. Even if we're both ready to break those habits, it's hard to break it with the same individual. And it's sometimes easier to jump to the next relationship, start fresh, rebuild those patterns from the ground up in a way that feels completely new, and be able to create this new version of the relationship with someone else. Sorry if you're I've been there, stuck in a relationship where you think you just want to keep rebuilding the same building with the same person over and over again. I'm just trying to save you time if that's the case. And if it is meant to be, it will go effortless. So tear the building down, build it with your current knowledge, and build it stronger and build it towards your actual goals. That is our day-to-day reading for the week. Any additional insights that I feel like need to come through? Make the most of the end of the Gemini energy and Venus, I feel like, is something that I'm supposed to say to someone. So again, we have Venus moving into Taurus on Thursday. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you might want to really get those last bursts of communication out, whether it be within your romantic situations or within your creative life, or even around your abundance. Because Gemini feels like it's going to have a better received energy for these communications. Whereas, again, Taurus can sometimes be a little bit blunt and a little abrasive with their delivery on what is usually the truth. So yeah, if there's a situation that you're like, you want it to be like a lighthearted little communication that's easily received, make sure that you're doing that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday after Taurus and Venus moves into Taurus. That's actually kind of be a really good energy, especially if this is around money, for like negotiations. So like maybe Gemini and Venus is when you pitch an idea, whether it be pitch a creative idea or pitch an idea to someone for going on a date or whatever, and keeping it really light. And then Taurus Venus is more, okay, let's get down to business and let's talk about what I really need from you with absolute clarity. So yeah, there's a balance here. We're using both of those energies to our advantage this week. And now we are going to do the drawing. And I'm actually doing my version of this drawing. It's a digital drawing, speaking of using technology. And this week we have more names than we usually do. So normally what I do is I just enter all the names in and do this little spin of the wheel online, a random name picker. And oh my gosh, I'm looking up the wrong thing. Random wheel of names. There we go. I've already programmed all the names into this page, and I think I've got all of them. Yes. I do want to remove last week's winner. So I'm going to delete one of these names, and we're just going to let the wheel spin. And I guess I'll do it on camera. So let's see who our winner is. Kathleen, you've won a reading. I'm so happy for you. You've been so diligent and supportive with your tip the readers. And you finally won. So if you are not Kathleen, just know that sometimes these personal readings at the end still resonate if you feel called to watch, because we are a part of a collective and we all are dealing with similar energy. So whereas her situation might come through with a specific area of life, you could maybe apply some of the advice that's ahead to an area of your life that may look similar or different to that. So stick around if you want. I think that that's a really great way to support other people's energy and potentially get your energy a little bit more on these readings. So maybe you win one of the readings in a future week. Again, you can enter into every single reading by becoming a monthly Substack subscriber, or as one of my new subscribers just did this last week, an annual subscriber, because you do save a little bit of money if you just pay the annual fee. And then you're literally entered into every reading that I do for the entire time that you are a member. And if you're not quite ready to make that jump into membership, you can do a one-time tip of your reader, which is always appreciated as well. And that tip will get you entered into the next week's reading. So it just depends on if you want to be in every week or just the week ahead. And yeah, I thank you so much for all of your support. And we are going to dive into the cards. So I'm feeling into the energy, and Kathleen, I am getting called to use a different deck. So I have my Lioness Oracle deck here. I do get called to use this little floral divine feminine type feeling energy when there is a little bit more divine feminine energy in the reading. This could mean that it's 11 romance. Ooh, that feels like maybe it's like saying some sort of are you in a romance rather than a romance? But it could be that it's about love, or it could be about reflecting on your internal union of divine feminine, divine masculine, which, as we always cover, is always how you get to the healthy external union. But it does feel very soft. It feels like there's a lot of self-love that wants to come through this week for one reason or another. Hopefully not because you're dealing with a lomance. Is that going to be the new catchphrase of the rest of this reading? But we're going to do a past, present, future just to get a vibe for what we're entering into and whatever type of energy wants to come up here. Again, I do get the feeling we might be dealing with a little bit of love life. Well, got a card on the floor. This is going to be really difficult to try and pick up. Okay, we got our past card, and I'll get to all of them once I've got it all done. I love my chair. I have a little meditation style chair that has a footrest in front of me, but I hate it if I have to suddenly get up during the reading because it's really difficult to get back into without jostling my desk all around because there's so many swinging elements to it. Okay, back into the reading. Okay, here we got another one. We got our presents. That was too many. I can't take all of those that just fell, but we are going to take one of them. And we got the future. Okay. Oh, this is so fitting already. It's funny the random things that I say when I'm just shuffling and picking up the deck that come back around. Okay. So Kathleen and anyone else that felt called to this reading, recent past energy we have for Kathleen is the 10 of Pentacles. So not a bad card. That's one of our cards from this week on Thursday when Venus moves into Taurus. It does indicate that in the recent past, there was sort of an element of stability, whether it be, this actually feels like more it's leaning towards maybe financial stability, but it can also be like a family support system, a relationship support system. It could. I'm getting a little element from the energy here that it could indicate that in the recent past, in a more negative connotation, which is normally not the Ten of Pentacles, but there could have been a lot of financial intermingling with a previous partner. And this may not have been as much recent past as just in your past relationship history. Yeah, there's a feeling of like, there's a feeling of, because the Ten of Pentacles is like you can support the life that you've created, the house, the family, what have you. This feels like two individuals maybe coming together and blending their finances to create this vision of this like happy home, whatever that looked like at the time. And then there's a feeling of like maybe that intermingling wasn't the best idea. So this is a very sort of individual vibe that I'm kind of picking up on. It's not normally how I would read this card. But it is coming through to me. Oh, I'm trying to see. For a second, I like my eyesight is bad and I don't have my glasses on, but I was like, oh, there's a man on this one and it looked like there was a woman on this coin. I don't think that's the case now that I've looked at it closer. But because my eyes were originally seeing that, it feels like there's like an overpowering presence of like a male financial presence and it's kind of overshadowing the feminine financial presence. It could be that there was a male that out earned the feminine in this situation, or it could just be that like it was just a big energy and it's like you had a lot of potential to shine as well in regards to your finances and your contributions, but there was just, it was like this other person was like taking up all the oxygen in the room. And I'm getting a little bit of a hit that listen to this either as a past romance, or this also, because we're talking a lot about finances right now, it also feels like it could be a work situation reading where like there was an overshadowing of a masculine energy at work because this personality just took up so much energy in the room, and like you were feeling underappreciated either at work or at in the relationship because you weren't allowed to shine quite as big and quite as bright for whatever reason, whether it be the other person saying you couldn't, for society saying you couldn't, or the circumstance at hand saying that you couldn't. Yeah, interesting. That is not what I expected this reading to unfold with. So that's the past. I usually say recent past. This one feels like it could be recent past and like maybe the past 3 years, 5 years. Yeah. The present is coming in with the Knight of Swords. So the first thing that I thought when this card came out is an echoing of our Queen of Swords energy. And that's not usually what I get with the Knight of Swords, but I go with where the energy is taking me. So again, the beginning of the week, we talked about Queen of Swords being the drawbridge and being very mindful of the energy that you let into your life. This is a less structured boundaries in the situation. This is coming through a little hazy. So the Knight of Swords in this case, normally I would read the Knight of Swords as like you're diving in the pool without seeing if there's water, which is either good or bad depending on the situation. This is still a fast-moving energy, but I'm getting that the message is less about the pacing and more about the way that the boundaries are structured around your social life. Because I feel like you're wanting to be in Queen of Swords energy with a drawbridge and a castle and a moat and all of the things and all of the structures and protections around you. Maybe because of this past situation where you got burnt a little bit by not being as appreciated as you should have been for your value. And this is saying like you still have boundaries as the Knight of Swords, but you're not in the castle. You're not behind stone walls. You're out in the world and you're charging into opportunities and you're sometimes getting into scuffles and like things are a little messier as a knight than as a queen. You can't be as structured with your boundaries because you are moving with the ebb and flow of life. So this feels like there might be a message here of not taking down your boundaries. Still have your boundaries in place and know your value and know your worth and know what you want and like tell people when they've crossed a line. But recognize that by the very nature of being out in the world, maybe out in the dating world, maybe out in the world for your career, depending on which way you're taking this reading, you have to be able to work with other individuals. Like you have to be able to go on dates and try new things and see if it works for you before you just establish a boundary. And know your non-negotiables for work and for relationships, but don't be so structured with what you think you need from a situation that you don't allow for a little spontaneity and a little just freedom to experiment, which especially is good in a dating situation. Like, especially like first couple dates, like allow yourself to go outside your comfort zone a little bit. And then once you've experienced the other side of the coins, you can decide where you want to place your boundary. So don't let it go too far. Like this feels like if we're using the dating as a metaphor, like go on the first couple dates, try on a different aspect of yourself, different opportunity of things, different activity. And then like if you decide that it's not for you, like don't go until your 1 year anniversary before you tell that person, hey, I actually hate football, or like whatever it is. Like this is like be flexible enough to try it on, try it out. But then like couple weeks in, if you're like, that really wasn't for me, like speak up, speak your truth, because that's swords energy. Speak your truth. Speak your truth and speak it fast is what I'm getting. So if you are to the point that you're ready to just speak your truth and speak it fast. But it also could be an element of speak your truth and speak it fast, and that like don't wait until the 1 year anniversary to tell someone that you don't like something that you did on your first date. Like let them know early on that that just wasn't for you. But also be open to, again, trying things, and also be open for suggesting other options. So it could be like you go your first date to it's not football season. Go your first date to a baseball game, and you're trying something new for the first time you've never been. You're like, I'm not going to say no to something that I haven't tried. So you try it out. You don't like it. Maybe even do second date to a baseball game. Please don't go to the same place in 2 dates in a row. Be more creative than that. But for the metaphor, maybe you try it twice. If it's still not for you, say, hey, tried it out. Not a big fan of baseball. I actually like going to Wrigley Field. I don't necessarily care for baseball, but I love the history of Wrigley Field here in Chicago. But like tell someone like not so much into that. What if we try this? And maybe even present something that you haven't tried yourself. Like you can both try something new together. And yeah, like I said, there's an element of like, don't be so structured that you shut yourself off from trying something. But when it's not for you, communicate, speak it now and speak it fast. Once you decide that it's not for you, speak it now and speak it fast. Don't delay on that communication. And again, we can apply this to job and romance. In the future, we have the Empress card reversed. So there is an element here of trying to come back to that divine feminine energy. There feels like maybe these past circumstances that we've talked about being overshadowed. This honestly, a big message I'm getting from this, and again, it could be literal or it could be just the metaphor of the situation, is like when a career-based thing comes in and it's like you have to be like, to be a woman in a man's world, you have to act like a man. Like that's kind of this energy from the recent past that I'm getting. Like there was some sort of masculine, either individual or patriarchal idea at large that was overshadowing your energy. And there was almost an element of like, okay, I got to deny a bit of my divine feminine and be more in my divine masculine to get noticed, to get respected, to be, at the same level as my partner, if it's like a thing that's relationship based. And then there's an element of moving into that Knight of Swords energy in the present, which is still kind of in your masculine. Like the message was to be softer with your boundaries and try new things. So there's a little element of feminine coming in there, but there is a lot of action in the Knight of Swords. So you're still driving from that divine masculine energy. And again, P.S., if you're watching this and you don't know, divine feminine, divine masculine has nothing to do with gender, and it even doesn't have to do with a one size fits all for you as an individual at all times. So as you'll hear in this reading, I'm talking about Kathleen maybe being more in her divine masculine energy, or at least a masculine energy. Sometimes it's more of a toxic, earthly masculine energy that we're imitating, and then moving into a feminine energy. The goal is not for all women to be in their divine feminine, or even all femme identity people to be in their divine feminine all the time, and all like masculine identifying people to be in their divine masculine all the time. The goal is ultimately to know how to judge the situation and move back and forth between the two, and just make sure that they're both coming from a place of evolved divine energy rather than toxic earthly energy. So that was like a little tangent, but I felt like it needed to be said. And we're currently in Kathleen's situation, moving into a situation where the divine feminine, which is the Empress, is coming in, and she's like, hey, I really want to be upright again. Like, I really want you to get back to this a little bit. And you've proved that you can be in the other energy, and that's important. And honestly, if you are trying to call in a relationship, learning how to identify with your own divine masculine within yourself is how you call in a healed masculine outside of yourself. If you are calling in a masculine energy, same thing goes for the feminine. If you identify more as a masculine energy, you're trying to call in a feminine energy, learning how to be in your own feminine energy helps you call in that feminine energy. So there was a time and a place for learning about your own masculine side and honoring that, and hopefully evolving it to a place where it feels like divine masculine. It's not showing up in sort of like a presentational way, but in a really, so here's the cliff notes on divine masculine. Divine masculine is action-based, and divine masculine is a good, sturdy container for divine feminine energy. So when we're trying to talk about inner union, we're always trying to interplay between being an intuitive, receptive, divine feminine energy where you can sit in meditation or creative work and like let things flow through you and be a channel. But in order to feel safe enough for that to happen, you have to have a divine masculine container. And ideally, you are the one that creates that container for yourself first, by creating boundaries in your life, in your routine, in your social circumstances, by having good energy containment and protection methods, by saying no when you need to say no so that you can say yes for the softer, creative, more divine feminine stuff. But you have to create that safe space for yourself. And that is you being your own divine masculine container for your divine feminine energy. If you are trying to be, if you're more masculine by default and you're trying to call in divine feminine, you're learning to not just be this like taking action, propelling things forward, creating almost, I mean, I hate to go like, because again, it's not about gender, but like that almost like protector energy that we like to think of in a classic cis masculine male female relationship of like the man is the protector. Again, not saying that that's the case or it can't be the other way around, but that is kind of what I see when I see a good, healthy, divine masculine energy. A healed masculine energy comes through as like, I'm going to walk on the edge of the sidewalk. Not because the person that I'm walking with can't protect themselves at the edge of the sidewalk, not because I don't believe in their power, but because that is just my more grounded nature to be at the perimeter, being sort of like a shield so that the divine side, feminine side of myself can be more open and receptive. Because if you have ever tried to channel or be receptive to creative energy, you know that you have to feel safe enough to open to that. And if you're not feeling safe, you're not going to be able to blossom open enough to receive the energy that you need. That's very, I know we're going very high-minded with this conversation. So I hope you're still with me. I think, Kathleen, you're probably still with me on this. But if anyone else is watching, hopefully you're following along as well. Again, this is the near future is calling out for you to get back to your divine feminine energy. So trust that you've done the work to tap into the healed version of your divine masculine. By the challenges that have been presented to you in your past, and by dipping your toe back into diving into new experiences with flexible boundaries. And that flexible boundaries is kind of leading the way into this divine feminine reawakening. And I think you're going to have a little conversation with your inner divine feminine about how you have created a safe container for her, because she feels like she might be a little shy. Again, that it's just easier to identify pronouns, but this energy feels like it's going to be a bit shy coming back out after some sort of past trauma. And this also could be that there's a relationship that happens in this flexible energy that then coaxes you back into your divine feminine. So this also could be the transition of like this experimentation, finding a person that makes you feel safe and allowing that divine feminine to ease into that safety. Because even if you find someone that is worthy and you can logically recognize it, there's something about the emotional body that's going to have to warm up to it. So if this is a relationship reading, again, the present moment is about that flexibility of your boundaries, but also speaking your truth and speaking it fast. And then if you do find yourself in a situation that feels like it's worth sticking around, you're going to have to kind of like, you're going to convince your inner divine feminine that this person is trustworthy. And that, yes, takes time, but don't put all the effort on that person to prove. If they prove themselves early on, don't make them continue to prove themselves over and over again just because you're not healing these wounds. There is a message of like, in the near future, this coaxing out of the divine feminine is partly your work as well. It's not just about finding a divine masculine container, either from yourself or from the outside world. It's also you going in and self-soothing that divine feminine energy so that she's ready to come out. So don't make the other person do all the work to coax her out. You also have to show up and do that work. Oh my gosh, that was a lot. I'm curious to see what's at the bottom of the deck, and then I do want to pull you a goddess card. So at the bottom of the decks, we have the Queen of Pentacles reversed. So this is an energy, I don't want to dive too far into this, but Queen of Pentacles upright is kind of more of a maternal homemaker earth mama energy. Reversed, I'm getting that there's more freedom to the situation you're trying to call in. So if you are kind of hung up on this idea of 10 of Pentacles being the absolute ideal of a more traditional, like home family, like 2.5 kids and a picket fence type it, if there's anything in you that's kind of stuck on that, this Queen of Pentacles reversed underneath might be telling you that you might want to, and maybe this is part of coaxing your divine feminine back out, you might want to reevaluate your goals, especially within romantic relationships. But if that's not what's resonating for you here, it could be like work related. But I'm getting a big romantic vibe of like, there might be a feeling that like you've thought that you want a traditional looking future. And in actuality, after all the healing you've done to your own inner masculine, you might be reevaluating what it is that you actually want and what your boundaries are, which is why you're supposed to have flexible boundaries in the present moment. Because I think that some of the things you think are your boundaries are not actually your boundaries. And some of the things on your wish list for your relationship and for your future aren't actually on your wish list anymore because you are a transformed person. So to coax the divine feminine back out, we have to rewrite the wish list and the requirements that you need for your romantic, financial, structured 10 of Pentacles future, because I don't think it looks like what society and your childhood self thought that it should look like. And that shouldn't be a disappointment, because when you actually reevaluate who you are and where you want to go, it's going to make sense to you to let go of some more traditional ideas. So this feels almost like, and I'm not saying that this is the situation, but like a good example of this would be like creating a very non-traditional structure around a living situation with a partner. So like maybe there's a situation where like you get with someone that like has a requirement to be in a certain location. It's not you have a requirement to be in another location. It doesn't even necessarily have to mean long distance. It could just be separate apartments in the same city for whatever reason that needs to be done. But it could be that that's just what works best for everyone involved. Like maybe someone's allergic to cats and the other person has a bunch of cats, and like you still love each other and you want to spend time together, but that person doesn't want to live with your cats. They can take Claritin or Allegra or whatever and come over and visit you, but they don't want to do that all the time. And you don't want to give up your cats, as I say, pointing to my cats that I would never give up. But there's this feeling of that, like, sort of like, this is what works for us. And it doesn't look like what everyone thinks a relationship would look like, but it works for us and it's happy and it's exactly what we need. And it makes us both more fulfilled as individuals to have our needs met. And again, when you reevaluate what you thought you wanted, you're going to realize that this type of situation actually really sounds good to you. But you are going to have to break down a lot of like societal programming of like, oh no, if we don't live in the same space together, that means that we're not actually in love. That means that we're not committed to one another. And like, you've got to get all of those other voices out of your head and ask yourself what you actually want to see in your day-to-day life. And if that looks completely different from what the outside world would understand, you have to be okay with that. Woo! Okay, I think that was a reading for a couple different people, but Kathleen, I hope that that served you well. And again, if you're still here and you want to be a part of the drawing next week, either become a paid subscriber on Substack monthly or annually, and or put a tip for your reader in the links below. Thank you for being here. I know this is a longer reading, but thank you. I so appreciate your support and have a lovely rest of your week.